Hi, fashionpreneurs. I'm Anna Livermore, founder of V.Mora, and today I'm going to dive into the biggest transition I'm seeing in the fashion industry right now, the shift to domestic manufacturing. If you're feeling frustrated by unpredictable tariffs, unpredictable supply chain, delays in delivery, and just an overall lack of control on your quality, you're not alone. The entire industry is feeling this, and a lot of big brands are shifting to domestic manufacturing. So today I'm going to get into why this transition makes sense and give you some what to expect for tariffs and supply chain changes and a simple step-by-step guide of how to do this cost effectively and as smoothly as possible. So let's get into it. If you're importing from China, you're facing a 25% import tax on top of your production costs. Last year alone, fashion brands collectively paid $2 billion in additional duties. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of supply chain chaos. So remember those cargo ships that were stuck in customs? Well, that's still happening. So delays on shipments, delays on landed goods, all of this has added to the additional tariffs, the supply chain chaos. There's so many reasons to make this transition now. Shipping costs have increased by 300% since 2019, and shipping times are still unpredictable. Quality and communication issues, those have always been a problem when you're working with offshore. It's hard to communicate. It's hard to get across exactly what you are wanting. And when you're working with an offshore factory, they don't always think the way that you would like them to think in the problem-solving process. So quality issues have always been difficult. So now more than ever, with the quality and communication issues, the supply chain chaos and the missed deliveries and the additional tariffs, what used to make it a good idea to be producing offshore, the advantages are not what they used to look like. So what's the alternative? Producing in the United States. So now let's talk about why producing in the United States is such a game changer. Number one, there's no tariffs. So you don't have to worry about that 25% increase. Yes, a lot of the materials will still be coming from offshore, and those materials will have that 25% increase. We are going to see a price jump in the cost of fabric per yard. A lot of fabrics are produced in China, but if it's both the fabric price and the duties on the goods, that's kind of like a double whammy. So there isn't going to be any tariffs on your goods that are produced domestically. You also will have a very shorter turnaround time. What would take, 6 months to produce offshore can take 4 to 6 weeks domestically. There's also a faster turnaround time when you're working with domestic manufacturers. When you're working in China, you've got to include shipment if you're shipping by boat or if you're shipping by air. But all in all, the time it takes to produce plus the shipping, you're looking at least 90 days, if not 6 months. When you're producing domestically, you can cut that drastically, depending on how large your production run is, but you can expect 6 to 12 weeks for your production run to be done, and then you just have to ship that to your 3PL or wherever you're shipping for fulfillment, but the shipping will be a lot less time than shipping, say, by boat. So the turnaround time is a lot faster. You can be producing a lot closer to that delivery date or sales window. Producing domestically has a lot better quality control. You can visit the factories. You can see your product on the line. You can communicate with the factories. I suggest always being there and showing up at the factory for when they're selling that product, because then you can catch something prior to that product being done. And especially, there's nothing worse than having your entire shipment shipped over and then seeing that there's a problem with quality. It's really difficult to fix that issue without paying the shipping fees to get back and the timeline. It's a disaster. You skip all of that when you're working domestically. Consumers love local brands. 63% of consumers are looking for where this product is made, and they're willing to spend up to 20% more on a made in the US product. That is an amazing shift that we have also seen. The consumer is caring, and if they're looking at one piece versus another, and one is made in the United States and it's a little bit more expensive, they're going to go ahead and pick that more expensive piece because they want local brands. So this is not just a business move, it's an advantage for your brand. All right, so now let's talk about how we're going to make that shift. The first step is to find the right manufacturer. You want to look at a factory that is familiar with your type of product, that is working on other brands similar to yours, that you like the communication with, that they have prices that will be comparable to the offshore prices when you're including the tariffs that are about to be added, with the different minimums that your product requires. All of this comes into play when choosing a factory. I strongly suggest, and this is how I work with my clients, we have the patterns and the samples created for all of your styles. You'll have a lot more control over your product if you are in charge of the development. You want a set of those patterns digitally. You want to have the grade rules. You want to have the tech packs. Once you have this perfect package of sample, tech pack, patterns, then all a factory has to do is duplicate what you've already created. So there's a lot less room for error. So that's the first thing that we do when we're shifting from Chinese factory to domestic. We do all the patterns and the samples and get all of these styles developed perfectly the way you want them for what makes sense for your consumer. When you're working with a factory offshore, a lot of times they will not give you those patterns. And if they do, we don't know if they're the latest patterns. Are they up to date? Are they any good? So it's challenging to start with a new factory because you kind of have to start from scratch. So we never want that to happen again. We want to have control of all of your styles, patterns, pattern alterations, everything digital. So you have the latest version of your sample and pattern to send to multiple factories to quote out in multiple places. You can even, a lot of manufacturing is shifting to, say, the Dominican Republic or Portugal or Turkey. But if you have this pattern and sample, this is something that you can have quoted out all over because you have the control. You're not investing the development with a factory because you've already done that development. So that's key. Step 2 is optimizing costs. Instead of mass production, you can do a pre-order. So selling your product and only producing what you've already sold plus a little bit more because we're assuming you're going to sell more. But you want to build a long-term relationship with these factories and vendors because once you're hitting the higher minimums, you'll be able to get some better pricing. But finding the right factory is kind of like a marriage. You're going to be working with this factory, hopefully for the next 10, 15 years for the duration of your business. So you want to pay attention to that relationship and make sure that it's a good fit for you, because you are going to be working with them. They're not a partner because they're not, tied to the profits of your business, but they are investing in you for the future. So it's more of a working relationship, mutual respect. You want to make sure that communication is good, all those things like marriage. But who you choose to do your manufacturing with is one of the most important decisions of your business. Step 3, you want to make sure that you are marketing made in America. You want everyone to know this when they go to your website. You want it to be on the forefront because more than likely you will have to increase your prices slightly to reflect either way, you'd have to increase your prices. Even if you stayed working in China with that 25% increase, your prices would have to increase by 25%. And if you take that into consideration when you're pulling domestically, your prices might also have to increase to reflect domestic manufacturing. You want to make sure that that is justified and everybody knows why. So having it on the forefront, having it on your website, having it on your hang tag, having it in your messaging, you want to have it everywhere. So there's no mistaking where this product is made and that people will then feel justified in if there does have to be a slight price increase. You can share behind the scenes videos of your manufacturer or the process of development, your fittings. People love that. It makes them feel a part of the brand. So even before you're launching, if this is your first collection, creating content all along the way to have that behind the scenes will help connect you to your customer. Be sure to be using your sustainable messaging. 68% of consumers prefer ethical brands. How am I being ethical? Well, if you're producing domestically, the workers are being paid, the workers are happy with their work, they're following labor laws. All of these things make your brand ethical. I would also suggest featuring a why we produce domestically page on your website so that, again, everyone knows I produce domestically and here's why. Here's the bottom line. Transitioning your production to the US is not just about the tariffs, but about future-proofing your brand. It's about quality control, faster turnaround times, and connecting with your consumer in the ways that it really matters. To make it super easy for you, I put together this free checklist, step-by-step guide on how to transition your manufacturing to domestic production. You can also click the link below and book a 20-minute call with me or someone on my team at V.Mora if you're looking to make this transition and you'd like some help. If you found this video helpful, press the like button, subscribe, and follow us for more fashion tips and insights.